All right, well, this is awesome. We have so much in common already. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of turn into like interview mode. So we're here with Jarek. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that right. And he's a very important guy, and you probably know him if you have any idea what World of Warcraft is. It's a small indie game by a small indie company, but let's hear from Jarek himself.
Well, you probably don't know me, but I am the lead developer on Wowhead, the largest World of Warcraft site, and also very popular right now with Classic because we have Classic.
It's back.
It's exploding in popularity. But yeah, so
you said the largest website in North America?
For Warcraft,
Right, in the world, no?
Oh yeah, in the world, definitely the largest World of Warcraft site.
Yeah, man, you gotta tell it like it is. Hell yeah! So that's really really cool. Now, unfortunately, I don't play World of Warcraft. I've never actually sat down and played World of Warcraft, although I've seen tons of streamers play, and I follow a lot of people on Twitter, including most recently yourself. But I've seen your tweets, and I've seen you retweeted a lot by other people in the WoW community because it's a very vibrant community, and there's a lot of people just interacting with each other constantly. How do you intersect though for obviously people watching? How do you intersect with Marvel Future Fight?
I've always been a big Marvel fan. I grew up on the X-Men cartoon and Spider-Man and Iron Man comics even back before he was cool. And although I would argue he was always cool, he just wasn't as well known. But yeah, I've always been a huge Marvel fan, and with the recent MCU and stuff, I kind of got like big back into Marvel and everything, checking out the Marvel games. Eventually found Future Fight, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool, and I started getting into it. And then
awesome.
And then they announced like, oh, the big X-Men update is coming. I'm like, holy shit, thank God,
I felt the same way.
Yeah, I've always been a huge X-Men fan, but I'm like, oh, it really sucks that Marvel's shafted the mutants, and then they finally get to show up again, and I'm like, oh, sweet. And that's what really sucked me in, and then I've just been really hardcore in the game ever since.
Awesome. So you are one of us.
Oh yeah, I am
one of us. One. Okay.
I do everything in my status board every single day. So like I don't miss anything.
Hell yeah. Okay, so how this intersects then for the people watching is that recently, if you guys haven't seen it, I made a video where I sort of gave my personal opinion, which is very devoid of knowledge and background information and expertise on the recent maintenance. There was maintenance on the 28th, there was maintenance on the 31st, and there was maintenance again on the 2nd for Marvel Future Fight. And I was skeptical as a very casual observer of this kind of thing in video games, and the only real connection I had or sort of point of reference was in MCOC. There's constantly Marvel Contest of Champions, constantly maintenance. Well, not maybe recently, but in the past, lots of bugs, lots of stuttering, glitching, lagging, and crashing. And some of those things get brought up by the community. I get pinged on Twitter a lot, and you can probably imagine as well, being the lead developer for Wowhead, you get a lot of messages as well of that nature or similar in nature. But turns out, for the second time in as many days, I was wrong. And thankfully, there's someone as smart as Jarek who reached out to me to explain what was probably going on. And again, I want to clarify, and Jarek can clarify as well, this is obviously speculation. He doesn't work at Netmarble, or he doesn't work with the team or anything like that. So what he's just saying is based on his years and years of experience, which is worth a lot, but it's obviously
it's my experience as a developer and looking at the problems. Like there are a lot of things that I can sort of infer because I've been on the other side of that. I've spent years on the other side of that, and how what's involved in maintaining a service long term and maintaining the servers, and what happens during maintenance. Like why don't they tell us exactly this or that? And there's a lot of reasons for that aren't immediately obvious,
right?
And like when they initially did the first maintenance, it's like, oh, server stability, it's so vague, and people are like, what does that mean exactly?
Right.
Server stability, well, it could mean a million different things, but it's almost certainly something very technical. and back end. And so like if they tried to explain it, they would have to write a few paragraphs to really explain what their system is and what they're doing. And just like, oh, you know, the way that we store such and such data has become, you know, is becoming like almost unmaintainable, and we need to upgrade this or that. And it's like there's not a lot of value in explaining that to the users.
It's a lot of technical jargon.
Yeah, and it gets very into the technical details, and then you get, you know, sort of armchair developers replying, well, why did you do it that way initially? Well, like then you just get into a whole discussion that's basically beside the point.
Yeah, people telling you how you should do things.
Yes, and oh boy, is there a lot of that when you run a large, you know, internet service, and anyone can just reach out to you.
Okay, so for example, just to give maybe people an idea, are you able to share with us like maybe how often Wowhead has to undergo some kind of maintenance that puts part or all of the site down, or at least like slows it down?
Oh, well, we just did that recently. Just a couple weeks ago, we did a database update. So kind of updating some of our internal structure for the way that we, you know, store data. And I'm not going to go any further into it than that for security reasons, basically.
Right.
But, you know, we have, you know, ways that we, you know, handle storing data, and we need to upgrade and update some of these things. We're changing some things around to make them better. And as a result, we're going to be able to make some things more reliable and ensure that there's less like failed pages on the site, and less likely that there's going to be more downtime, stuff like that. And so we had to bring the site down for a couple hours in order to run all of that. And we probably do maintenance like that a few times a year at least.
Fair enough, yeah. So that kind of fits.
Yeah, and we don't have to do it as often as, say, Future Fight, because like in Future Fight, and you know most online games, when you do a big update, you're typically changing a lot of things at once. You got to send down a new client to people, it has to be in sync and everything, and getting all those things to line up is a whole other headache that we fortunately don't really have to deal with. We just have the one site, and
right,
so we're
because
able
it's access from, like, they're accessing your point, not
so it's just
sending it right
straight from the browser. We don't have to. They don't have to. We don't deal with users having to have a particular client up to date or anything. So it's a little bit simpler for us. But we still run into some of the same problems where sometimes there's something really big that's going to take a longer maintenance period. And so the causes of those maintenance periods can be a number of things, like making things more stable. Maybe you have some new features that you're working on that you need to lay some groundwork for. It's like, okay, well, we want to do this, but we can't do it until we've modified some of our code to work in a slightly different way, or we need to store something better.
Right.
And all those things can lead to various types of maintenance that are not explicitly stated to the community, because they're either just lots of jargon, or it's stuff that could potentially be a security issue. You don't want to just go around saying, we found some horrible security hole, or something like that.
Right.
And maybe that happens sometimes.
Right.
And who's to say we can't see exactly what's going on behind the veil.
Right. And so, but when you have multiple instances of maintenance in a very short span of time, is that cause for alarm?
Well, when I saw that they're having sort of like fallout from the first maintenance, that basically looks like it's all, one issue, that they must have been updating something. They were changing the way something worked with that first maintenance, and that had some unexpected consequences. And usually when you're updating the way that something works, that's typically something referred to in programming as refactoring, like where you're just you're rebuilding the way that some certain processes happen. And there are a lot of reasons why that might happen, like I've already mentioned, like security and stability, but it also might just be paving the way for something else for the future. But in general, refactoring is always something that is specifically forward thinking. You're building on what you have. You're saying, okay, we need to do something for the future. So that's ultimately a good thing, because they are planning and working on stuff for the future. You don't do any sort of refactoring if you've got, a dying game or whatever, and you're just kind of coasting and hoping things get by, you wouldn't be doing, refactoring updates. And this looks like refactoring because oftentimes refactoring can bring with it some
Failures.
bugs along the way. Yeah, something can go wrong because, let's say you have a whole bunch of code working one way, and it's not the ideal way, but you've been running this for years and it's been functional for years. You've already kind of worked out the kinks. And it's like, well, but we need to make some changes for some upcoming stuff. So you rebuild it all, but then in the process of rebuilding it, maybe some new bugs get introduced you didn't spot right away. And then they get deployed. And it's like, oh, now we need to work out the kinks with this real fast, especially if it's low-level technology, like something related to the servers. Then, that can have some negative ramifications. But, the ultimate goal is good, that they are, sort of, building to improve on something in the future.
Yeah, no, it sounds amazing, actually, if you're saying it's forward-thinking. So to give people an analogy and to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly, because I don't want to just sit here pretending like I know, because this whole thing precipitated from me not knowing in the first place. Would it be similar to, in the analogy of, let's say, a sports player? They grew up their whole life, let's say, playing basketball, shooting the ball a certain way with certain form. And then they get to a point, or they meet a coach or whatever. Some situation precipitates them changing their shot mechanics, changing the way that they shoot with their arms. But then when they change it for the better, let's say because they want to play at a higher level, it causes them, let's say, foot pain, or it causes them to have to reevaluate other areas of their
or they're
game.
just not as good right away. They gotta,
and that would be refactoring. Okay,
sort of in a way that analogy does sort of work.
A bad kind of half analogy. Okay.
But
I'm known for those.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's when you really change the way that you're doing something, sometimes it leads to further reevaluations of, like some of this didn't work quite as planned, but then you got to kind of work out the kinks and figure it out as you go along. And sometimes those problems are very difficult to find just by looking at the code. And you say, oh, you should have tested it more, but there's a point where there's only so much testing you can do, and sometimes in order to fully test something, the only way to truly fully test something is to have is basically to send it out, unless you're like the size of Google or something, and you have your own central area where you can simulate millions of people hammering the servers and doing the same things. But that's just not feasible for almost anyone. But those super
the massive
unless you're Google, you're not going to be able to do that sort of thing.
Right. And even for bigger,
even Google has had downtime. And it's when it happens, it's like making headlines because it's like, holy shit, these guys
Google is
down.
not working. Yeah.
But yeah, like it's at a certain point, mistakes happen. People can only account for so many things, they're
not perfect, right?
And but generally speaking, looking at the way the maintenance happened and the fallout from the problems, it doesn't look to me like the problems that cascaded afterwards. It doesn't look to me like something where it makes me worry in any way. It's just like, they were updating something, they're working on something. It's probably, making their internal processes nicer, maybe trying to make the servers, more, more reasonable to pay for, stuff like that, so they can cut back costs. It could be all sorts of little things like that. But the point is, they're working on things.
Right. Could it be, for example, something like they want to change the way that damage, let's say something simple but very complicated, the way that damage is calculated? If that
honestly, I don't think would be related to server stuff.
Oh, it wouldn't be. Oh, okay.
Because that's related to the game engine itself and the way that things are handled in it. And in Future Fight, that's all client side.
Okay. But if they wanted to update those systems,
it would.
That would require maintenance, but
if they're updating stuff like that, it's typically going to come about as a part of their monthly-ish maintenance whenever they release an update. And so it would be part of that maintenance where they're updating all the the basic server code and stuff like that.
That'd be more like a patch.
Yeah, and the stuff that goes out because a lot of the game actually happens on the client side, which is why unfortunately there's some problems with hackers and stuff. Because if you're running a client, there's things you can do to say, oh yeah, I totally just killed this boss instantly with my level 60 Daredevil or whatever. and I remember
he really does play, guys. He knows all the memes.
Yeah, and I remember seeing this when back in the old World Boss Ultimate, you used to see people on those leaderboards. It's like, how could this one person with this totally rando team, and maybe one of the characters like isn't even maxed out or something, and like
they're a 5-star, yeah,
and
mastery.
It was just like, what is going on here? Oh, obviously they're hacking because some of the code is on just the client side, and people can spoof it. However, some of those people are obviously, like it's very clear what they're doing,
right?
And so I'm hoping that Netmarble is banning those people because it's
frustrating.
So
yeah, and it's blatant as hell. Yeah, world event and stuff like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, the world event today was Titania, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, and I didn't even go into it. I'm just like, whatever. I'm gonna try to catch 2 of them later.
Yeah.
But if anyone's getting like 4 million with those characters,
right?
There's no way they're doing it without teaching.
With Tatiana, there's no way.
Yeah. So
that's amazing. Okay. So, all right. Well, that is... Sorry, I think I cut you off towards the end, but did you have more you wanted to add about refactoring?
No, sorry. I'm kind of... But yeah. So refactoring is a good thing, but can lead to problems. And so just the fact that they have some server issues and stuff isn't really a sign of like, oh, like quality is degrading and stuff like that. It just means something, they're doing some work on the servers. Some of it went wrong. Shit happens,
Right.
And it's good to try to prevent those things and prevent them as much as possible. But overall, Future Fight is really stable. Like, I've been playing this game for years, and there's very little surprise downtime like that. Like, World of Warcraft has had way more problems than that. Of course, it's also a bigger audience, but still, like I think Netmarble has done a really good job with keeping the code stable overall. And this recent, battery of maintenance, I don't think is a huge deal.
Okay, that's it's really good to know, and I'm actually really thankful, and I want to thank you on behalf of the community and on behalf of myself for reaching out and also for taking the time to talk to me, because it's amazing to see such a huge game with such history and have one of the kind of perennial leaders of that game running this massive website, taking the time out to talk to the little mobile gamers as they are. But
hey, that's me too.
Right. Well, yeah, there's both. True. It's been so long since Diablo, man. Anyways, just one more question. Anything you want to say? I'll give you like a minute or two. Anything you want to say about Wowhead, about your socials, anything that you want to, just let people know if they're interested in playing WoW, if they already play WoW for some reason, they're under the mud and they don't know about Wowhead.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, Wowhead is just at wowhead.com, WOWHEAD. So if you play WoW, you probably already know it, to be honest. If you Google for anything, you just about always end up on Wowhead for news and guides, and if you're playing classic Where's Mancrick's Wife, that's where you find out, because that's a kind of a famous meme quest from WoW for those of you who don't know. But yeah, and I'm on Twitter as Jarek Dane, JerekDain, and yeah, you can find me there tweeting about Warcraft and Future Fight and Beware Politics, and yeah, and I have a podcast at decivilization.com. So if you like inappropriate podcasts about post-apocalyptic futures, then check that out.
I'm personally excited about that, post-apocalyptic futures, and so it's like like theorizing. Or
it's an RPG. So
it's an RPG. I missed that.
So
part
yeah, so it's like basically like we're playing D&D, but it's But it's a game that we've been working on for like 20 years.
That's amazing. How many other people are you there with? I mean, not there.
We've
but
got
it's
a group
podcast.
of 4 people playing right now
Nice.
in the podcast, and we actually have a lot of episodes banked. I gotta get some more edited and put up.
Wow. Are you the DM?
No, I'm not the DM, but I am the tech guy, so I handle all the editing, podcast
Perfect.
distribution.
It comes full circle.
Yep.
He's the tech guy.
Yep, I am the tech guy.
That's dope. Awesome. Okay, I will personally check that out because I played D&D recently for the first time in person with some friends, and I had a blast.
Oh yeah,
and
it's great stuff. I love RPGs.
So awesome. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Jarek. I really appreciate you talking to us and informing us. And
that's great. I love talking about tech stuff and helping people out.
Hell yeah. So guys, that was Jarek. Make sure to follow him on social media if you want to hear more about him, and check out his website Wowhead if you play WoW. But as he said, if you play World of Warcraft, you obviously already know about the website because it is huge. It is #1, and it's amazing to have someone with that much knowledge and that much experience taking the time out to talk to me and to talk to us in the community. So I'm really happy. You guys sound off in the comments. Let me know what you think of Jarek and his insight into potentially what the maintenance was for in Marvel Future Fight. And for those of you that have more interest in it, you can hit me up on Twitter or Discord if you want to talk about it even more. Subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me. And of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.